Hello and welcome to episode 225 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet in my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is March 25th, 2024. Today I'm wearing a cowl that's fairly old. I'm not quite sure when I knit it because I didn't put a date on my Ravelry page, but the page itself was created in 2012. So it's more than 10 years ago that I created the page, so the cowl must be older than that. And I think I'm wearing it on the podcast for the first time. And that's quite surprising because I was pretty sure that I'd shown everything that I own on the podcast up to now. And when I wanted to check when I last wore the cowl, I couldn't find anything. So either my lists are wrong or I've actually never worn this before. So I'm showing it to you now. The project, I called the project Ice Float Cowl back then because the pattern is called Lava Float Cowl, but my color looks so much more like ice, like frozen water than lava, that I changed the name. It's a free pattern and you start with a provisional cast on and then you knit a 2x2 rib with some cables, and then you turn it once so it becomes a Möbius cowl, and then you sew the provisional cast on and your life stitches together. And I think where I first showed it to you, I think that was where I'd sewn it. No, I can't. I think it's here. I didn't get the Kitchener stitch quite right, so this is I think half a stitch. It's offset by half a stitch. It's not a big problem. I think when I'm wearing it, nobody's noticing it. The pattern is, I think, written for a DK weight yarn, but I used the Soft Merino by Wolle Rödel, which is like Aran weight yarn, I think, plus a mohair yarn held double, and I used 8mm needles. So this must have been a really quick knit, and I love it. It's a nice little cowl. I chose to make the length so it just fits around my neck once. You could make it a lot longer so you can wear it twice or even 3 times. I liked it this way, and I think I knit the same cowl in a different color as well. I'm not quite sure, but my sister knit it as well. I remember that. So yeah, but I still have this little cowl, and now I've shown it on the podcast, and I think it goes quite nicely with this cardigan, which has some blue and some gray and then some more colors. And it's the cardigan Allsorts by Heather Griffin from HGDC, and I was allowed to test crochet this cardigan for her. So she's the queen of granny squares, so most of her patterns involve granny squares, and so does this cardigan. And this is crocheted with 2 strands of the 8-ply sock yarn held double. So I think I used, I should have checked, I don't know if it was a 10mm or 12mm needle, or maybe even an 8mm needle, but a fairly big hook to crochet these. And the squares are built or crocheted in a way that the first 3 rounds I used a colorful yarn held double with the blue-gray yarn, and then for the last 2 rounds I used the blue-gray yarn held double, so the same color held double, and I used the same for the sleeves and also for the sort of ribbing or edgings. The edgings are worked this way or rubbed this way, but they are attached while you go, so you don't have to sew them on. And yeah, the cardigan is 3 squares wide in the back, and then the front only has like 2 rows of squares, and then the middle row is missing, so there's room for my neck. And also the back is 1 square higher than the front. So yeah, if you could see that the front hangs a little bit higher than the back, but it also means that the neck goes up really high in the back, which I really like. So it makes it really nice and warm in the neck. I still like to wear a cowl or a scarf or a shawl or something, but that's also to cover the front. And sometimes if I get cold with the open jacket, I'll use one of those needles to to just hold it together. And I really like it. My sister also likes this cardigan a lot, so maybe one day I'll crochet another one in different colors for myself, and then she can have this one. Right now the cardigan lives in my shop, and then whoever gets cold can wear it. Yeah, so that's everything I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects. I have one finished object today and no new cast on. Quite happy with myself. Now, if I can keep it up to finish more than I cast on, it'd be really good. I would like to keep it up for a while so I get the number of projects I'm working on down a little. Doesn't mean I'll only have a few, but just a few less than at the moment. That's what I'm aiming for. So my finished object, of course, are the Sock Madness socks. I showed them last week as a new cast on, as the pattern dropped not last Sunday, but the week before Sunday. And I was still working on the first sock when I filmed the last episode, but I finished them on Thursday. And I was able to catch a spot on my team for round 3. And but the second round still runs until next Monday, so there'll be no new Madness socks this week, unless I cast on a bonus pattern. Not quite sure about that yet. Anyway, so these are the Yttygran socks by Anna Zuravleva. Really difficult name. You can check it on my Ravelry page if you want to see the way it's written, and maybe you know how to pronounce it. But the socks are very nice. I knit them using Alpaka sock yarn by Hansa Farm, and my sister chose the color. And this is the pattern on the front of the leg and on the top of the foot. And it's not a very complicated pattern, but it has lots of stitches knit through the back loop, so twisted stitches, and it has lots of mini cables. So you twist 2 stitches, and that's how you get this pattern. And I was a bit worried whether the moderators would be able to see everything because of the darkness of the yarn, and also because it's slightly fuzzy with the alpaca, but I got the reply that they were accepted fairly quickly. Yeah, so this is my finished object for today. Round 2 Sock Madness 2024. Then on to works in progress. There's one other pair of socks that I'm working on at the moment, and that's the pattern Acorn by Tin Can Knits. And I'm using this German yarn, Westfalen Wolle, which is undyed yarn from German sheep that's been completely produced and processed and everything in Germany. And I finished the first sock. So it's a pattern with many cables. It's a fairly big yarn, but that's what the pattern calls for. So I use the numbers in the pattern for a small adult size, but it's bigger than I would need it. I could wear it, it would just be a little too big. So I made it a bit longer than I would need it, so I can give it to somebody else. But firstly, I want to have it in my shop as a sample so people can see what the yarn looks like when it's knit up. And I think what I'm going to do is I will, as soon as I finish the second sock, I will wash one of them, but not the other. So people can notice the difference when the yarn is washed and when it hasn't been washed yet. And I started the second sock and I finished the ribbing. And then after the ribbing, there's 1 round of increases and then 2 rounds of knitting without cabling. And then you cable for the first time. And I stopped before I did that because I wanted to show you something. So I think most of you will know that when you knit cables, you need more stitches to get the same width than if you didn't do cables, because the stitches get sort of squashed together. And just to show what a difference it is, I decided not to do the first round of cabling, but leave the sock the way it is now. And I think you can tell that the ribbing is about the same size, but if you look at the knitting now, it's this much wider before I've knit any cables. So with the first sock, before I did the cables, I tried it on my foot and it was just huge. It's way bigger than my foot. But as soon as I do the cables, it's going to pull in, and then the size will be the size it's supposed to be. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because the sock has a lot of stitches. Even the ribbing has more stitches than I usually use with this kind of yarn. I went down a needle size, so I'm now knitting with a 4mm needle. The other socks I knit out of that yarn, I use the 4.5mm needle, so they are a little bit softer, and these are fairly stiff. I'll see what they feel like once they've been washed, but I think if you knit them more tightly, they'll last longer. So I think it's worth the work of doing the tight knitting with plus the cabling, so they don't wear out as quickly. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so that's the one sock I have on my needles. There won't be any competition socks this week, so I might cast on a different sock. We'll see. Maybe not. Yeah, but then we have some more sock weight projects. The first one is the little beloved hat. It's another Tin Can Knits pattern, and I'm using this Hansa Farm alpaca silk yarn, and I've almost finished it. So this I will definitely finish this week. Maybe I'll finish it even tonight, we'll see. But this is a little beloved bonnet, and it's such a sweet, cute little thing. You start with one of the I-cords, then you do increases, and then you have one garter band at the back of the head, and then one at the front. And with the short rows, this ends up being shorter than this. And then once you reach the middle, you go from increasing to decreasing. And then once I'm back to, I think, that number of stitches, then I'll stop knitting the stockinette stitches, I think. I'm still with the decrease, doing the decreases, but this shouldn't be a lot more because the stitches get fewer every other round. And then in the end, I'll just end up knitting another I-cord, and then you have the little ties that you can use to tie the hat in place. Yeah, so that's a little beloved bonnet. It feels really nice. The yarn is nice and soft. I'm knitting at a fairly loose gauge, but I think for a baby hat, that's absolutely okay. It doesn't have to be tight. It's supposed to be warm and soft. That's the main things. Yeah, and the next project is the double knit cowl Remember by Nathan Taylor, the Sockmatician. And I think I haven't shown that in several weeks because I kept not working on it. But now I added a few more rounds to it. And as I said, it's the same yarn as for the hat. It's the alpaca silk yarn by Hansa Farm. And I'm using red and black to knit this double knit cowl. And the nice thing about the double knitting is you have no floats, so you can have big pieces with no pattern, and then you can have lots of pattern, and it doesn't really matter, and it will always be stretchy and soft and everything. So this is the side that I'm looking at while I'm knitting, and then the inside of the cowl is probably going to be the outside that I will be wearing. There you have the red poppies on the black background. And yeah, I'm really happy with how this is coming along. I think I knit 3/4 of it now from the rounds thereabouts. So there's still a bit more to go, but also quite a bit finished already. And I really enjoyed the knitting. I'm looking forward to wearing this. And I just think it's so fascinating, like there's no flower at all here. I think there will be one up here, but then also there's this wide stretch down here where there's no pattern. And still, because there are no floats, no problems. And yeah, it's a great project. Yeah, and I'm really happy I picked it up again. And I really enjoy the process, so I'm not really in a hurry to finish it. But on the other hand, if it gets done, I'll be happy to. And then the other project I'm knitting with fingering weight yarn. There's also one color with the alpaca silk, but the other colors are two different types of alpaca yarn. And that's the Line Dance Mystery Knit Along by Lisa K. Ross. And in case you don't want to see it, you have to look away now because I'm now showing it. And just to remind you, that was clue 1, where I knit a triangle in that color. And then clue 2, I knit a triangle in this color. And there we were told not to cut the yarn. And then we continued knitting onto 1/2 of the stitches. So half of the stitches I put on hold, and the other half of the stitches, this half, I continued knitting. And while I continued knitting these stitches at the, and I have to see where things are. So at the end of every right side row, I would knit 2 stitches together, and this is happening. So it's a very interesting construction that's happening at the moment. So I haven't finished clue 3 yet. I still have to do quite a few rounds with this color, and then there'll be some more colors, and the clue goes until I've used up all the stitches until here. So I still have to knit this bit. The number of stitches stays the same at the moment. Yeah, and these 2 colors, the light gray and the dark gray, that's the royal alpaca, and that's so soft and is such a joy to knit. The blue colors, both this one and this greenish blue, they are both the baby alpaca quality. They're also very soft. It's just that these 2 colors are even softer. It's incredible how soft this is. And so I'm not showing anything anymore. I really enjoy the knitting. I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes on and what the shape is going to be in the end. The last clue is going to come either tomorrow or on Wednesday. Then we'll know how to finish the cowl, and I'm not promising to finish it to next week because there's still quite a bit of knitting done to be done for clue 3, and depending on how much knitting clue 4 involves, I may not have finished it, but at least I'll know what it's going to look like, and then maybe in 2 weeks' time I should have it finished. And then I'm looking forward to wearing it because of the beautiful yarns that are in the project. Yeah, so that's that. Then on to non-sock yarn projects, or at least part of them. I did not crochet on the summer crochet pullover. I'm still figuring out how to do the sleeves, but I just didn't have time to start a new square. But I crocheted on the Whispering Pines crochet pullover, and there I'm already back to sock yarn because this is the so-called 8-ply sock yarn by MKal, and this could be considered a finished pullover. If I was into cropped pullovers, I would call this finished, but I'm not into cropped pullovers, especially if they're this thick and warm. I want it to be a bit longer to keep my back warm as well, and so I'll just keep crocheting until I'm happy with the length. The sleeves are done. I'm not going to add any ribbings anywhere. I'll just leave it the way it is. Yeah, and I measured the yarn. I crocheted about 40 grams into it last week, and maybe I'll add about the same amount again. I don't know. It will probably be one of those situations of crocheting 2 or 4 rounds and then trying it on, crocheting 2 rounds, trying it on, things like that. And I really hope to have it finished by next week. Depending on the weather forecast, I might even wash it and wear it next week if I'm worried it might get too warm too quickly. But if the weather stays the way it is at the moment, I can show it next week as a finished object and then wear it in 2 weeks' time. We'll see. Then the next project is a non-sock yarn project again. That's the dress Mamaki that I'm knitting. It's a pattern by Nicolor Nicola Susan, and I'm knitting with this special yarn that I had put together, that I chose to put together these 6 different strands, and I bought it at the yarn factory in Hamburg. I've had it for many years, and now I'm knitting this top-down dress by Nicolor, and I finished the yoke, and I had already started the sleeve, I think, some time ago, and now I continued knitting the sleeve, and I'm not doing the decreases the way Nicolor describes them in her pattern, because I also didn't knit the yoke to the measurements that she said. So I stopped the yoke a bit earlier because I didn't want it to be too deep, and I didn't want the front and back to be too wide. And because I stopped earlier, the sleeve is probably a bit narrower than she had it, because she starts decreasing straight away, but I decided to knit several centimeters without decreases, and I think I've only just started. I've done 2 decreases so far, and I'm doing the decreases a bit further apart than in the pattern. But that's also something that I will keep trying on to make sure that it's wide enough, and on the one hand, and not too tight on the other hand, and not too wide. Whatever. I'll just keep trying it on to make sure that the decreases work out the way I want them to be, and to find out how long I need the sleeve to be. And then, so the first sleeve always takes quite a long time because I keep measuring and trying it on. And then the second sleeve will be a breeze because I'll know what to do and I can just knit. And then the exciting part is going to start when I knit the front and back down as far as the yarn will let me go. That's the plan. So that's the Mamaki dress, and then another project with alpaca yarn. That's the Squiggle and Stripe pattern by Stephen West, and I'm using the brushed alpaca by Hansa Farm in these beautiful autumnal colors, and I added 1.5 stripes. So last week I added the beige stripe, and now I did the light green, and I'm in the middle of the dark green stripe, and I really enjoy knitting this. The yarn is very soft and very easy to knit, and even though I would never wear these colors, I really enjoy knitting them because I think they do look nice, and they do go well together, and yeah, it's quite interesting to knit this pattern. Quite unusual for me to have those colors. Anyway, so that's the shawl I'm knitting on, and then we come back to a sock yarn project, and that's the new pullover that I showed you last week when I showed you the Shetland. Oh, I forgot what's the English title of the book. Did I write it down? Yeah, it's the book Evolution by Susan Crawford, and I'm knitting the pullover Lanatus. And I did not knit a lot on it, even though I really enjoy it. But because of the sock madness, I was quite busy for quite a few days. And then I tried to knit a little bit on everything. So all I did is finish this little pattern. And then I knit the single color round, and I did the increases. So this is the next increase round. And now I have to start the next pattern. Really looking forward to doing that. And I'm still enjoying the change in the colors so much. And I was a bit worried that the patterns wouldn't be like very visible with the many colors, but I think you can see them really well because they do have a contrast to the main color, and I really like the way they look and the way things work up so far. Yeah, so really enjoying this project. And then that's almost everything. But I usually try and show you everything that I knit and crochet throughout a week, but sometimes I will do just a little something on the side and I will completely forget about it. And so maybe it's a swatch, or maybe I'm just trying something out, or I'm helping a customer or something. But this time I finished a little something and I thought I'll show it to you. And I did that with a little customer of mine together, and I gave her this book to look at, and I thought maybe she'll pick one of the squares that are not too difficult, but a bit more interesting than a granny square, because she's an 8-year-old girl who only speaks very little German, and she learned to do the chain stitch and single crochet and double crochet. And then I taught her how to do a normal granny square, a simple granny square. And because I felt she was getting bored, I showed her a few books. And then she looked through this book that has 46 different patterns. And so here are a few more of the squares that are in the book. And then she decided she wanted to crochet this one. So I think in the book, she puts the squares from easy to difficult. And the one that she chose is number, it's number 45. So it has 46 patterns, and she chose this one, the second most difficult pattern to do. And I read through the pattern and I thought, well, it's really difficult, but that's what she wanted to do, so we did. And I crochet right-handed, she crochets left-handed, and I think she understands most of what I'm saying, but she has difficulties trying to tell me things. So it wasn't all that easy, but we got started like 3 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks ago she continued crocheting, and then last week she crocheted, and then last Saturday, she actually finished the middle motif. So we didn't do the square, we just did the flower in the middle. And this is what mine looks like. So when you look at these things, they go in and out of each other. So you actually have to cut the yarn and pull it through. And then you have to start a new yarn when you've used that up. And it's quite a lot of work, and it's like 16 times you have these chains that you have to crochet different size stitches onto, and it's not easy, it's fairly complicated. But this little 8-year-old girl managed to do that, and I'm really proud of her. And then she gave it to her mum as a present. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with mine. I'll either use it as a little, like to put a mug on, a mug rug. Or maybe I'll sew it onto a bag or something. I don't know yet. But I really like it. I don't think I would have chosen to make it because it looked too complicated. But because I had to show her how it's done, that's why I made one. That's how I like to teach, especially if I can't talk that much or I'm not sure my words are being understood. It's easier to show things and then she can copy it. Yeah, just a little something. And that was the book. It's called Häkeln im Quadrat. Crochet a square, and then she has another book that's called Crocheting Not Only Squares, and her name is Stephanie Thies. I'm not sure the book's available in English. I'll probably link the German one underneath the video. They do have charts for every square, so you could probably crochet them if you're a bit if you're already experienced crocheter, you'll probably be able to crochet from the German pattern as well. Yeah, and that brings me to the last project, which is my Haramaki. By the way, I did not bring the skirt, the Evenstar patterned skirt. I did knit on it a little bit, but I still haven't finished that bit of pattern. That always looks the same. And as soon as I finish that and I've at least started the next pattern, the next bit of pattern, I'll bring it and show it again. But my Haramaki knit out of opal sock yarn on this side and merino sock yarn by Hansa Farm on the other side. I'm slowly getting to a point where I'm sort of getting tired of the project because it's always the same, and I do get bored sometimes. So I'll try and pick it up when I'm concentrating on something else, when I'm listening to something, or maybe talking to somebody, or maybe even watching a movie where I don't have to look all the time, because with brioche, I do have to watch my knitting. Yeah, but I do want to have it. I haven't tried it on yet, so I'm still not quite sure how long I'm going to make this. But yeah, one of these days I'll put a long cable in, I'll try it on, and then hopefully make a plan for how many rounds I want to have, how long I want this to be, so I know how many more rounds I have to do. It helps me. I know some people prefer to just keep going and then measure it every now and then, but I quite like to know how many more centimeters, how many more rounds I need to do, and then I can sort of, I like to see the number go down of rounds I still have to do. I hope that makes sense. Yep, so that was everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!